What's up, Psychedelic Investors? My name's James, and you're watching The Psychedelic Investor, your number one news source for psychedelics. Your number one news source for psychedelic stocks and everything MindMed. Today we have a short follow-up video to our last episode where we looked at the catalyst for MindMed and its stock in 2021. In that video we talked about the NASDAQ clinical trial updates that MindMed will give this year, conference calls, and possible financing deals. But of course, we missed a few important possible catalysts, as you guys so rightfully pointed out. So in this episode we're going to briefly run through them. First, we have the imminent launch of the first Psychedelic Medicines ETF, the North American Psychedelics Index. We will talk about when it will launch, in what manner will it affect MindMed, and how much will it influence the stock price. Next, we have another big dog, Atai Life Sciences, going public. Here we will discuss how the IPO of another big rival will affect MindMed. And finally, we have a potential catalyst of partnerships, mergers, and acquisitions. And this comes directly from an interview with J.R. Ron and Kevin O'Leary. But first, if you enjoy this video, invest in the channel with your like and subscribe. Over time, you'll see your investment grow as we continue to bring you information that you need to know before investing in the psychedelic medicines landscape. And if you're feeling extra generous, let us know in the comments what you think about the potential for MindMed and another company to merge. Does this excite you? Let us know. Enjoy the video. So the first catalyst that we missed in the last video was the imminent launch of the North American Psychedelics Index, which will be run by a company called Horizons and will be listed on the NEO exchange under the ticker PSYK, or PSYK. This will go live on January 27th, so less than a week from now. The stated purpose of the ETF is to invest in and indirectly derive revenues from companies in the psychedelics industry engaged in legal activities involving psychedelic drugs and substances. So, before we get into how much it will affect MindMed's stock price, I just want to emphasize that this is a catalyst for MindMed's stock only, and only in the short term. Even if the ETF were to radically boost the price point of MMEDF and MMED, it is important to understand that this will not affect the viability of MindMed as a long-term investment. All that matters on this front is whether or not their medicines work. I view this catalyst a little like the NASDAQ uplisting, though it is of course a lot less strong. It may affect the short-term price of MindMed, but it won't change in either direction the underlying MindMed thesis. Having said that, how much could we expect PSYK to influence the stock price of MMEDF and MMED? I want to be clear that this is pure speculation, but I don't actually think it will affect it too much. In the short term, at least, PSYK will only list on the Canadian NEO market. This means that people in the much larger American market won't have the ability to invest in it. They do have plans to eventually expand to the US, and if that is the case, it will have a bigger impact on the stock price, but for now, it will be limited due to the fact that it is solely in Canada. The second issue is how much capital the ETF receives. If it is relatively low, then the 10% of it that holds MindMed stock won't amount to many shares. And if it is not holding many MindMed shares, then obviously the price effect it will have on MindMed will be small. To be clear, whatever the effect of PSYK has on MindMed will be positive. I just do not believe that in the short term at least it will have too much of an effect. I've seen in some of the chat groups people talking about the ETF like it will be a major catalyst for MindMed, but where it stands now I'm just not seeing it. If this ETF blows up and attracts billions in capitals and expands to the USA, then that would be a different story, but we're not there yet. It will boost the price point a little bit, relative to how many shares it owns, which is a function of how much capital it receives, plus any media coverage it attracts will have a positive spillover effect to MindMed. But, in general, I would say that for now, this will be a mild positive catalyst for MindMed stock. And stay tuned because sometime in the next week or two I will try to get a video on the North American Psychedelic Index. The second catalyst I didn't mention in the last video was the IPO of rival Atai Life Sciences. I don't know the date of this IPO, but it is expected to be in the first half of 2021 and could possibly be very soon. In this video I won't go too into depth about Atai as I'm planning an explainer video, but a couple quick highlights. Atai will definitely be the number one competitor to MindMed. Most importantly, they have 8 clinical trials, one of which is a phase 2 trial looking at the effectiveness of treating opioid use disorder with ibogaine. Sound familiar? They also have 7 phase 1 trials using various molecules to treat everything from mild brain injury to PTSD to depression. On top of this, they own a 29% stake in Compass Pathways, a company they spun out with its own IPO last year. And yes, they are heavily backed by Peter Thiel, visionary investor of projects like PayPal, Facebook, and Palantir. This means that not only do they have the programs and the scientists, they also have the funding to ensure that they can see the clinical trials through until the end and then commercialize the treatments. For example, they recently secured $125 million in a Series 3 financing round led by Peter Thiel. So, why is it good news that a rival of Mind Medicine is coming to market? Basically, their IPO will bring lots of media coverage not only to Atai, but also the industry as a whole. And when people start looking at the opportunity to invest in Atai, they may discover MindMed as well, which in terms of funding and advancement in their clinical trials are at least their equal. You may remember that when Compass Pathways went public, MindMed stock saw a big boost in the ensuing weeks as more investors discovered it and compared it to Compass, which had a much higher market cap at the time. I expect to see the same thing happen this time. Finally, we have a potential catalyst in mergers, partnerships, and acquisitions. The day after our last video was filmed about potential catalysts for MindMed in 2021, Kevin O'Leary and J.R. Ron had an interview at the Context 365 event. In this interview, when asked about potential catalysts for 2021, both talked about the potential for partnerships, mergers, and acquisitions in the psychedelic medicines field. And of course, it was embarrassing that the day we had a video being released talking about potential catalysts for the company, we missed the one that the leaders of MindMed discussed the very same day. So that was part of the inspiration for creating this follow-up video. Let's take a listen to the question and JR's answer.
Kevin, before I finish up with you, I want us, JR, over the next 6-9 months, for the folks in the audience, any catalysts that we should be looking for that we haven't discussed yet?
I think partnerships are going to be huge. We're going to need to partner with insurers. We're going to need to partner with other pharma companies. I mean, these trials take large amounts of capital. We've been successful at raising. I think we've raised a total of $184 million US. And we're not a small little startup here anymore. We're progressing. I think that's important. Need to look at the companies that can raise capital. Clinical trials are expensive. I think also looking at how do you implement technology and build platforms out for this space. I think those companies that are thinking about that and actually showing progress on how they're doing it, very important. I think you will start to see readouts on trials. And there probably will be some form of unification in the space. There's a lot of players. I don't think that the institutional investors are going to look at 25 different players. I think there's a clear leadership pack that is forming in this space. And so, this is a new industry. It's a new asset class. I think we're in early innings here. There's still a lot of things that need to come in, but I think you're also going to see more of a focus that psychedelics are the catalysts. There's also a lot that can be done in pre-care and aftercare of mental health in general. This is a mental health play. This is not just a psychedelic play. The mental health is the problem we're solving for.
As for what partnerships, mergers, or acquisitions could we expect? Well, they didn't name any companies, so we really have zero idea. Maybe it could be a company like Numinous, which has growing facilities for psilocybin mushrooms, or they could acquire any of the host of companies that have very little financing and a low market cap, but have exciting clinical trials. Or perhaps they will merge with one of the big dogs like Atai or Compass to create a consolidated leader in the field. Another option is partnering with establishment pharma companies like Johnson & Johnson to distribute their products. It really is anybody's guess. I don't know if the fact that they both mentioned it means a deal like this is being discussed, or if it was just a hypothetical that could happen sometime in the future, but will not necessarily happen anytime soon. But if this does happen, it would be a huge catalyst for MindMed, not only for its stock, but for the underlying thesis of MindMed. Unlike the previous two catalysts we discussed, as well as the potential NASDAQ uplisting, this would affect the question of MindMed's long-term value and their ability to develop, produce, and distribute game-changing medicines. Perhaps sometime in the future we'll do an episode situated completely in the speculation zone and discuss what companies MindMed should be considering acquiring, partnering with, or merging with. It really wouldn't be going on much but speculation, but it would be fun. So to recap, the 3 potential catalysts that we added to our list are the launch of the North American Psychedelics Index, or PSYK, the IPO of Atai Life Sciences, and the potential for mergers and acquisitions in the psychedelic medicines field. The last of which is both the most speculative and would be the most impactful catalyst. If you haven't yet seen our first video discussing the catalysts for MindMed in 2021, click the card above. We discussed the effects of the potential NASDAQ uplisting and all the important dates in 2021 as it relates to clinical trial progress. It is a must-watch to know what to expect for the company in 2021. If you enjoyed this video, support the channel with your like and subscribe. And if you just can't get enough of me, hit that notifications bell. And if you're not ready to leave me yet, don't worry, I have that effect on people. Click on one of the videos you see now so we can stay together just a little bit longer. This is James from the Psychedelic Investor, signing out. I'll see you next time.